Hey everybody, this is Dan with Pain for You. Today I've got the pleasure of introducing Deborah from Belgium. And Deborah volunteered to do a success story interview because she's been very pleased with her results. And I figured we would have a little conversation so she could share a little bit more about her journey and what she's gone through and when she figured all this mind body stuff out. And I'll let her tell the story, but welcome, Deborah. I really appreciate you being willing to come on and share your story with the hope that other people will benefit by it. And welcome. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell me a little bit about what's been going on and where you're at now and how you got there.
Okay, thank you, Dan, for giving me this opportunity to share my story with other people who are watching your channel and who know about your videos that are really helpful, by the way. Yeah, I'm Deborah. I live in Belgium. I'm 36 years old, and my story started in February last year, so February 2021. At the end of the month, I started to feel, as I, of course, recognize now, really stressed with my work and with a new relationship and everything. And it started with a little twinge and a little uncomfortable feeling in my pelvic floor. So I had a little bit of an itch, or it was a bit weird. So I went to see my GP because after a week and after 2 weeks, this uncomfortable feeling still wouldn't go. So they run some lab tests to find out whether I had an infection or maybe a yeast infection or something like that. But all the tests came out fine. Everything was clear. But of course, the feeling didn't go away. The symptom kept crawling back up, which made me feel really insecure. Also, of course, in my relationship. It made me feel uncomfortable and very worried. So the stress kept building up around this pelvic floor thing. And by the end of, let's say, May, June, by the end of the school year, because I'm a teacher, I thought, well, this is enough, because it wasn't just an itch anymore. It turned into full-blown pelvic pain, with me being unable to sit down. So I went to see another GP. I went to see a gynecologist, then another gynecologist, then a urologist, and they all gave me different diagnoses. The first gynecologist thought it was a really bad yeast infection, even though nothing came up in my lab tests.
Right.
They kept giving me medication for something I didn't have.
Right.
So I thought, no, there must be something more, because I'm not getting rid of the pain. And it was getting worse, of course, because I was very worried, obviously. By the end of June, I got another appointment with this specialist who seems to be known worldwide, apparently, for his knowledge about gynecology and infections and pain syndromes down there. And he told me, well, there's nothing going on. You're just a bit stressed. Yes, your muscles are tense down there. So maybe I should operate on you. And I thought, what? Why would you do an operation? Well, he thought that even though I was already 36 years old by the time as well, that I was too narrow and that I was not able to have intercourse on a normal way. So he thought it was due to some sexual problem, and he was going to make it better by making me more wide, or I don't know.
That's ridiculous.
I thought, no, this isn't the person I should get advice from, even though he was the #1 specialist from Belgium, the country where I live in. So I went to see another specialist, which was this time a urologist, and she told me, well, what are your exact symptoms? So I made a list of my symptoms, which were pain when sitting down, the sensation of having a sort of a foreign object in my pelvic floor, like sitting on a golf ball, no pain at night, And of course, yeah, a lot of a feeling of real tension and discomfort. And she told me, well, the things that you're telling me makes me think that you've got a condition called pudendal neuralgia. I had never heard of pudendal neuralgia before I saw this urologist, and she sent me, or wanted to send me, to a pain clinic to get a nerve block to be sure whether it was or is the pudendal nerve or not. Because apparently, if the nerve block would numb me, then the diagnosis would be right. At first, I was a bit reluctant to go through with the nerve block, because a nerve block down there, I don't know, I wasn't really keen. But
Right.
at the end, I went through with it because I was desperate. That was during the school holidays in July. And at that time, I was really worried that I wasn't going to be able to go back to work in September. So I was just holding on to every straw they would give me, to every hope. And I thought, well, I have to do this, because otherwise, what? What option do I have left? So I went through with the infiltration. It was a pulsed frequency infiltration, so it wasn't the normal nerve block. And they told me it would start working between 4 to 6 or maybe 8 weeks after the infiltration.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I had it done at the end of July, and I was desperately waiting for myself to get better. And in August, I actually went on a vacation with some colleagues of mine, with some friends of mine, and I felt that I was slightly getting better. So I thought, yes, this infiltration is working. And I was really happy, even though I wasn't fully there yet. I wasn't pain-free at the time, but it was getting better. Then the school year started, and I was all excited about meeting new students, seeing my colleagues again, and just being really grateful that I was able to start the school year. But by the end of September, I actually hit rock bottom, and that was the 8-week mark. So the end of September was 8 weeks after I got the infiltration, for which my doctors and the gynecologist and the pain specialist promised me that I would be pain-free after 8 weeks. Nothing, nothing like that. It wasn't true at all. I even at the time convinced myself that I was unable to go to the toilet. So I got so much tension down there in the pelvic floor that I felt that I couldn't really empty my bladder either. I got all this stress. I couldn't handle it anymore. I was in pain. I still couldn't sit down very well. So I just had a major crash.
Wow.
And I went to the ER, and they did a bladder scan. And of course, my bladder was just fine. It was empty. I wasn't retaining any fluid in the bladder. But yeah, it got me thinking something is really wrong. I mean, I cannot be this scary. This anxiety is just eating me alive. So I got admitted at the beginning of October of last year in psychiatric care facility for a week. Normally it's more time that one spends there. But yeah, I just was there for a week. And I think that gave me a bit of a push, because they started me on anti-anxiety medication. And actually, I'm not really a big fan of taking anti-anxiety medication or antidepressant, nothing like that. But for me, it was my first aha moment, because the infiltration hadn't worked. All the medication, all the creams they were prescribing me for the last year, they hadn't worked. I had proved that nothing that my doctors had prescribed me ever worked. So the only thing that got me through a bit was this anti-anxiety medication, which made me think, this is strange, because yeah, you read about it on the internet that they also help for pain. But then I started to think deeper, and I wanted to know why this medication also helps for some pain syndromes.
Sure.
And apparently it has to do with the mind. And that's how I started digging deeper into the mind-body syndrome because I came into contact with the theory of Dr. Sarno in August.
Okay.
But I must say that at the time, I wasn't really ready to truly believe this theory.
Right.
It seemed too easy at the time. I was in too much pain. I just needed to control my life. I needed to Google, which is a really bad idea, of course, but was my form of trying to control things.
Right.
So I kept reading on Google. I kept reading stories. I joined the forums in which women talk about volvodynia and pudendal neuralgia, and they were just horrible, of
Very
course.
scary
And
places.
they made my symptoms really scary, yes. And they made my symptoms even worse.
Wow.
So it was a real challenge to be on that forum. I quit them rather fast, but on the forum, I got to know a girl who had sort of like the same symptoms I did. And she introduced me to the idea of TMS. And I'm thankful that she did. Yes.
That's awesome.
Because at first I didn't believe her and I thought, are you saying I've never heard of this, the mind-body syndrome? How is it possible that you can just maybe control your pain using your mind? But then in October, when I hit rock bottom, I mean, I didn't have any options left. So I thought, well, let's have a deeper look into this mind-body syndrome. And that's how actually it all started to get better for me. Slowly, but
Awesome.
eventually I got there.
Very cool.
So that's the story.
That's the background. Now, once you found out about TMS, mind-body syndrome, Dr. Sarno, what did the recovery look like? Because you said you found out about that in around the October timeframe. Did you have a light bulb moment where you said, this is what's going on with me? It definitely is. Or did it take a little bit of convincing yourself before you were able to accept that this TMS, this mind body, and what I'm now calling perceived danger pain was causing it?
It definitely took some sinking in.
Right.
Because I was in a lot of pain and I didn't know what to do and I was desperate. So I was thinking, how could a theory written down in a book help me get rid of my pain? At first in August and in September, I just couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
But then in October, I thought, well, what the heck? I have got nothing to lose. Let's read more about it.
Sure.
And then when they started me on this anxiety medication, of course, I was more calm. And that was sort of the push for me to be able to be more level-headed, to start reading and digging into this TMS theory. Yeah.
Okay. So did you read some Dr. Sarno books, some of the other experts in the field? How did you really educate yourself?
Well,
and did you
I read a lot on the TMS wiki. Sorry?
Did you go through any of the various TMS programs or mostly reading in the TMS wiki?
I mostly did reading on the TMS wiki website. I was searching for stories that were similar to mine. I also read The Great Pain Deception, this book.
Got it. Yes. Was on it.
And I read some parts. Yes, exactly. And I read some parts of the Healing Back Pain book from Dr. Sarno. But I read that book in the beginning. So at the end of October, I started reading it. But at that time, I couldn't really relate because I really thought, well, yeah, this is about back pain and that's not my issue.
Right.
Which, of course, now I know that it's not about the symptoms and that eventually the cause is all the same. It's the mind. But I remember getting this book in my mailbox. And the first page I read because at the beginning, I'm always just having a look in the book. And I opened one page and it said right there, and I thought, this is a sign. It said, pain clinics don't lie except to keep in business. And that was also a aha moment for me, because I was thinking, well, okay, normally this infiltration I had was supposed to work after 8 weeks. By the end of October, I was a bit better. So I was starting to think, well, yeah, maybe this infiltration is working for me. Just it took more time.
Mm-hmm.
But I was wrong, of course.
Right.
Because during November, during December, the end of the year, I was still having some doubts, and I was thinking, yeah, okay, I'm better now. But this pain specialist told me, yeah, but after a year, you will have to come back because the pain will return. And no, it won't. It
Why do
won't
they say
return.
these
Maybe
things?
sometimes I do feel a twinge. I don't know, to keep in business, I
Um,
think. Or
or
maybe because some people who are not familiar with the mind-body syndrome, when they start feeling a twinge, they might think, oh no, it's back.
yeah,
And then they start fearing again, and then the pain comes back, and then they go for another infiltration. And I don't know.
yeah. And let me just say this. I agree with Steve Ozanich that sometimes it is about the business, but there are very good, well-meaning people in those professions that just don't know about this stuff. They're well-meaning but not informed at the role that the mind
Yeah.
plays in persistent pain syndromes. So I don't want to just have this interview come across as we're saying, oh, those evil, greedy doctors. That's not the intent of this here.
No, no,
That is the opinion of
no.
Steve. I think there are probably some people in the medical profession that are like that, but the vast majority are well-meaning, but it's just not taught in medical school. And if it's not taught in medical school, it almost doesn't even exist. So thank you for that. So did you
Yeah,
actually do
I
any?
just wanted to say I think they're all well-meaning,
Yes,
but I think most of them, or the majority, just doesn't know.
right.
And of course, they only try to help, and whatever works, works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know a number of people watching this are going to say, okay, Deborah, what did you actually do to get better? I know you said you read and you learned. Did you follow any type of a process or a program? Was there any type of information that you found particularly helpful? Um,
I
or
didn't
was it
follow a
most?
program.
Okay, so did you do anything like the journaling, the meditation, the talking to
I
your
didn't
brain?
journal either.
Actually, I'm pleased
I
to hear that.
watched, yeah, I watched a lot of your videos every day. And I also started to try to calm myself down by meditating.
Okay.
That's something I do and still do every day, because I'm that type A person. I'm a perfectionist. I'm a goodist. People depend on me.
Mhm.
I'm always the one who's giving advice, things like that. So I started to just take some time out. I took 1 month sick leave from school. At first, I felt really guilty, but then afterwards, I thought, no, this is about myself. I really need to disconnect a bit to just really get to the bottom of what this mind body syndrome is.
Mhm.
So, at first, what really helped me was, as you always say, Dan, the knowledge about TMS.
Right.
I I felt like I needed to really, really understand it, even on a scientific level, how the brain works and how the brain creates pain.
Right.
And when I got that, when I really got the true knowledge sinking in, I started to not put myself any limitations. I mean, I thought, no, I can't go there because I have to sit down and it will be painful, or I can't do this or that, I can't drive, and things like that. And I slowly got back to activity,
Sure.
which gave me, little by little, proof that I was able to do things, sometimes in pain. I'm not going to lie,
Of course.
but um, sometimes it was better than I thought it would turn out. So it gave me little moments of proof that I was on the right track.
Right.
I remember going out with my boyfriend and his best friend to Germany just for one day. And we had a lot of fun. And I remember sitting down in the car and I thought, pain is gone. So that was proof for me that I was having fun.
Were you shocked?
I was engaging in life. Yes. And then I also remembered, well, yeah, back in August, I went on this vacation with some colleagues of mine, some friends, and I was also feeling better. Afterwards, the pain got worse
Yeah.
again. But in that week, I was enjoying myself and I got proof that, yeah, that just by being able to relax or being able to put my mind somewhere else, that it would help to dial down the pain.
Sure. Yeah, that's absolutely proof of TMS or perceived danger
Yeah.
pain, because when the overall stress level comes down, the whole system kind of calms down as well. So when did you
Yeah.
finally feel like you
Because
got it?
even now,
Go ahead. What were you going to say?
I cannot I cannot pinpoint down one moment, but I was grateful that, well, maybe I can. After 2 weeks being in sick leave, trying to calm myself down, being mindful and doing this meditation stuff, I went to a bar with an ex-colleague of mine, and I was a bit scared because I went to a bar, so I have to sit down for at least 1 hour, and but I was okay. I was so happy to see her again because it had been a while with COVID and everything. And then I had a nice conversation with her, and actually the sitting down wasn't that bad. And that was the first moment where I experienced, having the knowledge, of course, that doing something fun is really helpful.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then I just started to convince myself with scientific knowledge, because there's a lot of scientific knowledge about the mind-body syndrome, that I was on the right track and that I was going in the right direction. And I just implemented more of those moments into my life. But I also took enough rest because I still felt pretty tensed. I still felt pretty stressed out.
Right.
So I slept a lot. I needed to get the stress out of my system. And yeah, by the end of, let's say, January, the beginning of February, I felt like, okay, I got this and the pain is gone.
That's amazing. Yeah, and
Yes, it truly is. I'm so grateful. Yes.
you're a perfect example of somebody who rejects it at first, says this can't
Yes.
be the case because I've got a real problem down there. And, people will often say to me, but it feels so real. How can this be made up
It
in the
is
mind?
real.
It is real. It's just not created by a physical flaw or injury or disease or anything. It's created by a brain which is
Exactly.
perceiving danger. And the more we tend to get upset about, fear, freak out, and focus upon the symptoms, it can get worse and worse and worse till you kind of feel like you hit rock bottom and you're saying, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And so, fortunately, you were able to hear about this concept, this mind body concept, where the brain creates the pain based on a perceived danger. And what I often explain is that once people start to have symptoms, they get medicalized, meaning they go from doctor to doctor to doctor, treatment, nothing works. 4 different doctors, 4 different opinions as to what's causing it, all of which have, you need surgery, you need a nerve block, you need this injection, you need that therapy. And, it's extremely confusing and traumatic in that we're sitting here going, is this my life now? And we really don't know what's going on. So, number one, you were very blessed to find out about TMS, Dr. Sarno, and his work. And unfortunately, you had to hit rock bottom
Yeah.
for you to start opening your eyes and saying, well, what else do I have to lose? And you were also smart to notice that the anti-anxiety meds, they're not pain medicine, but if they're lowering your overall anxiety, which also lowers your overall fear level, and the symptoms got a little bit better, then you were smart enough to connect the dots and say, well, if that actually supports this book I read about TMS and the mind body. So then you said, oh, now I get it. And then you dove in even deeper. My understanding of how this stuff works is the knowledge is absolutely foundational.
It is.
Because the knowledge is what you're able to utilize to dial down the fear, because this perceived danger pain, this TMS, is fueled by the fear and the attention we give to the symptoms. And when you're really afraid of the symptoms, you're staring at them all day long.
24/7.
So the knowledge is really important, but more important than that is connecting the dots and accepting that, okay, this knowledge, this base of information as to how it all works, this actually applies to me. This is what's going on with me. And that's a big leap for some people to take. So you were insightful enough to connect the dots and say, you know what? The medical stuff isn't working. The anti-anxiety meds got me a little bit closer. So this makes sense. And you went all in. You committed to it. And within a reasonably short period of time, I mean, October through January, February, that's not a great deal of time. There's people who've been dealing with this stuff for years, decades even. And so this success story is going to be wonderful, because I literally just got an email yesterday from somebody who is in desperate straits. She's had the similar type of bladder, pelvic type of symptoms and diagnoses, and she's been dealing with this for 20 years. And so for her, it's extremely difficult to believe that, number one, the mind can create and perpetuate these things. And she has a really tough time believing that it can ever go away because it's been around so long. So you've been blessed that it was a shorter term thing, but it doesn't matter whether you've got pain for 6, 8 months or 20 years. The brain is what is keeping it persistent through the fear and the attention we give it. And the more freaked out we are, the more upset we are about it, the more angry, full of despair, the more attention we give it, the more the brain perceives danger and says, she's got a problem down there. Every time you go to the bathroom, every time you sit, we got to give her the pain to protect you from these dangerous things like urinating and sitting, which is ridiculous, but that's what the brain determines based on past experience. So I am thrilled for you. You've absolutely taken the information, not just from me and my videos, but from Steve Ozanich, Dr. Sarno, the communities, the TMS Wiki, and basically said, I'm not broken.
No. But it took me a long time as well to believe that I wasn't broken.
Right.
Because I was convinced that I was in a really dark place. I was convinced that I had to stop doing the job I love. I had to stop teaching. Right. I pictured myself being in the couch or in my bed for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I was so scared for the financial consequences this condition might have.
Right.
So I really felt like I had to do something, and I'm glad I did.
Oh,
I'm glad I found out about Dr. Sarno and his theory, and I'm forever grateful that I found out about his theory and that I dove into it, because it was my savior. Really.
So awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
and I also thought I was different from everybody else, because I read all of the stories on TMS Wiki. I saw some success stories on your site. And I thought, well, no, I'm different because I really can't sit down. I'm in so much pain. I mean, this has to be real. My mind was just out of this world. living a life of its own. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, what I notice for sure is when you are in that fear of the symptoms and of it, what it means for your future life, and you're really in that freak out zone, as I call it, or in that panic, rational thought is not available to us. So you might
No, it
read a
isn't.
book like Dr. Sarno wrote or Steve Ozanich and go, this is great for them, but this doesn't apply to me. Oh no. And, and so a couple of things happened for you. The anti-anxiety medicines brought it down just enough for you to go, wait a minute, maybe I should
Yeah,
take
they
another
just
look
took
at
the
this.
edge off. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is not a recommendation for people to go get that. It's just an observation that in Deborah's case, that's what allowed her to mentally make the switch. Now, are you still on those
Yes.
medications or no?
No,
Because you
I'm not.
didn't really need them in the first place. The anxiety you were feeling was all about the symptoms,
Mm.
and it creates this fear loop. We're fearful of the symptoms, and it creates more symptoms, and then we're fearful. And at the end of the day, you did not have an anxiety disorder. You had a pain disorder, which the anxiety was part of the fuel, right? It was the fear
Yes.
that was fueling it. And once you
Yeah.
get enough knowledge to dial down the fear, the whole system can calm down. And then, you realize at the end of the
Yeah,
day, I'm not broken. I can go back to work. I can start having fun and living my life. And it sounds like you're doing just that.
I am. It was a vicious circle. At first, I was scared of the pain. Then I was scared of the anxiety. Then I was scared of living life. Then I was scared I wasn't going to be able to get off this medication, but I did. At first, I came off them too soon, which caused anxiety again and symptoms returning. But then I slowly tapered off of them and I had confidence. I knew and I truly believed that this was an anxiety, well, fueled problem,
Mhm.
an anxiety induced physical problem. So, yeah, I believed and I got out of it by just trying to live my life.
That's
I
fantastic.
mean, I'm not running any marathons right now, and I'm still at times quite tired because it took a toll on my overall well-being, of course. But I'm getting better every day. Also with this fatigue that I'm still experiencing at times, because it took a lot of energy, of course, from me. So at times I'm still feeling a bit um, fatigued,
Yeah.
tired, but I think it's normal. I
Yeah.
think it's normal.
And
It will
my
get better as well.
yeah, my encouragement for you there is just view the fatigue as another symptom of
Hmm.
TMS and the mind body syndrome. And if you can have the clarity about the fatigue and the lack of fear because it's temporary and it's just as a result of a system that's still kind of settling down. Um,
Yeah. I
and
also
so,
see it as part of my recovery.
yeah. So just decide that the fatigue will go as well. This is not a long term thing. And
It won't be.
no, I think you're doing
Mhm.
fantastic.
Thank you.
Is there anything you'd want to share with anybody who's watching who might be going through a similar situation, particularly pelvic bladder issues? Any words of encouragement or, um, I don't know,
Yeah,
anything
definitely.
you would
I
have loved to
mean,
hear in the beginning?
yeah. Well, yeah, because you have so many stories about back pain, and I'm not saying that back pain is better in sort of way than pelvic floor pain, because it isn't. But there aren't as many stories about pelvic floor pain than there are about back pain, and I'm very grateful to have found these few stories about pudendal neuralgia and volvodynia and all those syndromes about the pelvic floor, because they also were aha moments for me and they also helped me get through. And
Right.
they also eventually made me see that I wasn't any different, that I didn't have any sort of symptom that was, or that made me any different than the people who were telling those stories. So
Yeah.
I would say to the women or even men who are watching this that don't lose hope. Definitely don't lose hope. And if you're still in some doubt, because doubt creates fear and fear sets the symptoms on fire, then please keep reading about the mind-body syndrome until you believe it.
Right.
And stop Googling. Please stop Googling, because it's just, a train wreck. So that's very important. Don't Google, and get yourself off the negative forums online.
Right.
And stick to your idea that you will get better, because I've heard this many times, the sentence I'm going to say now, but it's really true. If I can do it, then the people who are watching this can do it as well.
Right.
Even though for me, it wasn't years. I truly believe that once you get the mental click, and you get it once you truly and 100% fully believe that TMS is the stuff that works, then you will get better.
Right. One thing I'd like to just point out, you just said once you get 100% belief. If you're watching this and you say, but I don't believe 100%, so this is not going to work for me, so I'm not even going to try, don't do that. I always say in my videos, believe enough to get started, to start doing the education, the knowledge, the connecting the dots. If you think you need 100% belief in the very beginning before you can even start, no. She got to the place after her journey, after the knowledge, after the, connecting the dots and doing the assessment, saying this is what's going on with me, after starting to see results, she got to the 100% belief towards the end of the journey, which is what really nailed it down for her to the point where she's comfortable. And so please don't interpret that you need 100% belief to start, because nobody's at 100% in the beginning. As a matter of fact, I don't think 100% belief exists, because if you just have one stray thought that goes, well, what if it's something else? You're not 100%, but your brain believes what you think and say most often. There is no 100%. So just make a decision that this is what you're going to pursue, gain the knowledge, dive deep into the knowledge, get the foundational clarity that you need as to what it is, how it works, and that it does apply to you. And from there, you can work on the various things that I talk about, that Deborah was able to do, which is reminding yourself, I'm okay, this is temporary. She did some meditation. And believe it or not, Deborah did not work with me as a coaching client. She wasn't in my group. She was able to put this together through some books, her knowledge, the tmswiki.org, as well as watching some of my videos, and she put it together and she was able to get better. So for anybody out there thinking this is a sales pitch, it's not. Plenty of people are getting better without spending a dime other than buying a couple of books. But watch my videos. They're free, and there's over 1,000 of them on YouTube. So Pain Free You, look for the Pain Free You channel. And what that is, it's a daily reminder of the clarity and the confidence and the message of safety that says you can do this, you will do this. Here's tips on how to do it. So dive in. What else do you have to say? Anything you'd like to share with the world?
There are so many thoughts running through my head. Most of them just saying how happy I am that I'm finally able to share my success story with you, because talking to me 6 months ago,
you were in a
I
very
would never have
place.
believed I would be having this conversation with you now. So it is really possible. It is.
I remember
you just
Deborah.
have to dive in.
Yeah, she and I think we emailed or Facebook Messenger messages, and
Quite sometimes, yes.
she was in a very dark, fearful place, and nothing makes me more happy than to see somebody go from freaking out to, I got my life back and this is wonderful, and now I even want to tell other people. So that's so cool.
Yeah, it is.
So unless you have anything else, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. To anybody out there with any type of pain syndrome, whether it be pelvic, bladder, anything like that, or back or shoulders or headaches, or it's all caused by the same thing. The pain starts, the brain gets fearful, the focus and the anxiety and the fear about the pain itself creates this loop. It becomes learned and persistent. And all we've got to do is break that loop and say, nope, time out. We're not really damaged. We're actually okay. And when you teach your brain that you're safe, that there's nothing bad going on, the whole system can kind of settle down. And that's exactly what Deborah did. Very proud of you. Thrilled for you. Thank you for sharing your story. And unless you have anything else, we'll wrap this up.
I think it's a wrap, and I hope that my video will reach a lot of people, and I hope it will be helpful, because I also got a lot out of previous videos that you did with some people you knew who were in pain as well and who have success stories. Because that's why I'm doing this, because I know these success stories are a real support.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you again, everybody. Take care. Thank you.